Greetings, I'm Keith Klein, the host of the VentureFizz Podcast, where I interview the most fascinating people in the tech scene. This is episode 348, and today's guest is Jonathan Bensamoun, founder and CEO of Fi. It's crazy to think that the VentureFizz Podcast has been around since 2018, and I believe that I've only had one repeat guest, and that founder was talking about a new company. Thus, this is the first time I am doing a follow-up episode, and Jonathan was my guest back for episode 110 in 2019. I ran into Jonathan at the Lerer Hippeau summer party in New York City, and as we were chatting about his business, it seemed very obvious that we needed to do a new interview. What's cool about this episode is the format, as it is different from most of my interviews. Since we already discussed his background story in the original episode, we were able to go much deeper into Fi's business and what has happened over the past 5 years. If you're not familiar with Fi, they are the creators of the Fi Smart Dog Collar, which not only has real-time location tracking, but the device also includes activity, sleep, and behavior monitoring. In this episode of our podcast, we cover lots of great topics, like a brief overview of Jonathan's background story and what was the inspiration behind Fi, the latest about the Series 3 product line, plus a demo and all the cool features involved, the importance of sleep tracking for your dog and how the movement to health tracking is a key piece of Fi's strategy, lessons learned from retail and why a straight direct-to-consumer model is the right fit for them at this point in time, building out a company's leadership team and board of directors, what the fundraising process has looked like through Fi's journey, creating a category, and why more competition in the industry would be a good thing, and so much more. Okay, quick word from our sponsor, Silicon Valley Bank. I'm excited to share that this podcast is brought to you by one of the strongest longtime supporters of the local startup ecosystem, that being Silicon Valley Bank, a division of First Citizens Bank. SVB serves innovative tech, healthcare, and life sciences companies, including 60% of CNBC's Disruptor 50 list, 72% of Forbes Cloud 100 list, and 48% of Forbes AI 50 list companies. With more than 1,500 bankers and relationship advisors and $42 billion in loans through Q2 2024, SVB delivers the right people, service, and resources to support your entire financial journey. Learn more at svb.com. All right, without further ado, here is my interview with Jonathan. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Keith.
All right, so this is the first time I'm doing this. This is a follow-up episode from a interview that we had, scary to say, 5 years ago.
I know, right?
2019. I was still just kind of getting the whole podcast thing going. So you were an early interviewee. So thank you for taking a chance. We're 340 episodes into this now, which has been a lot of fun.
Incredible. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's been, it's something that I love. I love talking to founders. I love talking to investors. So I don't think the podcast would continue if that was just something that I felt would be a good marketing tactic for VentureFizz, but it's something that I actually deeply care about. And our audience loves the stories and they learn so much from everybody's journeys. So what we're going to do today is do a 5 year later conversation. Where's your business, right? So Fi is an amazing product. It's a very complex product and you've had new releases. You're on release, version 3 now. So we're going to talk about that. So there's a lot to cover here, but before we get into that, for maybe someone who hasn't listened to the first episode, let's just do a quick overview of your background before starting the company, kind of like a condensed version of your professional journey. If you want to listen to the full journey, which we did a deep dive, you can check that out in the original episode at venturefizz.com/podcast. But if you could just walk us through your background, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me again, Keith. It's a pretty fantastic experience to come back here 5 years later and kind of catch up. My experience, I'm a software engineer trained. I'm French. You can hear that still 5 years later, I guess. I've always loved to build innovative products. I did a few years in the startup industry in New York, in San Francisco. I worked for Square for a few years, and I moved back to New York in 2015 with Square actually, and then I invested a little bit, and I was kind of looking for my next thing to start, and I get my dog at the same time, and that's what kind of like triggered me starting Fi in 2017, I believe.
So Thor is your dog's name, right?
Thor is my dog. He's my German Shepherd.
Okay, so what was it that triggered the idea for, you own a dog, but what triggered the idea?
Yeah, the original idea is really that I was doing some work, and so I hired a dog walker to walk my dog when I was out of the my apartment, and he started lying to me about how long he would walk the dog, and at the time it was kind of the emergence of all the home cameras. So I had like I'm a geek, I try everything that comes out there. So um, I had a home camera, and I was like, well, he didn't really walk the dog for an hour. It sounds more like 37 minutes to me, Um, and so pretty quickly I realized, well, you hire these caretakers for your dog in general, and like you kind of want to make sure that you can keep an eye on them, the dogs mostly. And so um, I was like, yeah, I kind of want to put a GPS on my dog and make sure that I always know where they are. And starting to dig into that product category, I realized that there were actually a ton of people who were losing their dogs every year. Like the um, American Human Society actually estimate that there are about 10 million pets lost every year. It's a huge number. And so people were actively looking after solutions to prevent these from happening. And that was kind of the initiation of me starting to think about uh, a smart collar that could track your dog anywhere and track their location, but also track their health and anything you can think about for your dog.
But it's a category that really didn't exist at that point in time when you started the company, right?
Yeah, there were a few products here and there. I think it's a category that comes from kind of the hunting collars. So like as a lot of product categories, even if you think about home cameras, for example, right? IP cameras existed for like years and years. They were like more in the business side, industrial type of application and environments. And then progressively, as this product become uh, more consumer available and easier to manufacture at scale, then they permeate through the consumer kind of market. And now everybody has like a home camera just because why not? It's so easy. You plug that on your Wi-Fi, etc. Right? Um, and so I think the smart dog collars are a little bit follow a little bit the same kind of trajectory, right? Like it started from very military applications and then kind of hunting dog applications, and then progressively it's coming into the consumer space. And now, yeah, we're kind of one of the pioneer to be able to trigger some consumer adoption in the US for sure.
But it's also tricky because you need a lot into a unit, a piece of hardware that is small enough for the dog collar, but there's a lot that goes into actually creating that product.
And that lives around the neck of a dog, right? Like when I
Right.
started this business and I was talking to electrical engineering and mechanical engineers about this project, they were like, so summarize for me, you want to create an LT powered GPS device that has an accelerometer that is waterproof, that lives around the neck of a dog, and that can go in the mud, that can scratch on the floor. Like they looked at me a little bit like I was crazy, and they're not wrong objectively. It's definitely one of the most challenging piece of technologies that you can think of, really. And it has to be small and comfortable to go on any size of dog and be comfortable for the dog to wear 24/7 and things like that, right? It's pretty easy to design something that is massive and that you just hang on the neck of a dog. But if you want to miniaturize something and make it actually a respectable consumer product that can reach mass adoption, that's where the challenge comes in for sure.
Okay, so fast forward, you're at series three of the
Yeah,
product. So it's come a
yeah.
long way since we first talked,
Mhm.
multiple series here. So I thought it'd be fun just to give a kind of a latest like demo of the app and obviously the features of the collar and everything.
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing to demo, I think we just talked about miniaturization, right? This is series three. So series three is an LTM GPS activated device that has now even wireless charging. You see Q charging in the back. Um, that has a Bluetooth antenna, a wireless antenna, a Wi-Fi antenna, a GPS antenna, an LTM antenna. Um, I'm probably forgetting something. There is an accelerometer in there. There is a gyroscope in there. And there is a construction that's really incredible, right? Like this is end-to-end stainless steel. So this can carry the tension of a dog pulling about 800 pounds side to side without breaking, right? Uh, Same thing with the dog, like chewing on it, like other dogs chewing on it, like so. And this is IP 66K 68 as well. So like this is like 50 meters underwater, spray salt water tested for 30 minutes. So it's kind of like pretty amazing achievement from the hardware perspective, and kudos to the team to be iterating on this over the past 5 years, you know. And then there is the data and the software aspect of it, which definitely evolved as well, right? Like so, I'm happy to give you a quick tour of the app and show you the things we've been working on, but. Now you have a full dashboard of the information about your dog. You can see where my dog is right now. You can see his activity for the day and how that activity matches to his goal for the day. You can see the amount of sleep that he's getting. You can see the ranking of my dog. Like there is just a bunch of information on the same screen, right? Like we do now full live tracking. So what we call, sub 5 second, sub 10 second location update if you lose your dog. Everything around step tracking is something that you can compare to other dogs on the network, so you can see exactly how your dog positions versus other dogs. We have like this really cool like ranking features that people go crazy about. So you can see that my dog is ranking like 34,000 of the 5 dogs, but if I look at actually the ranking for my personal contacts, is number 10. So from all the people that I know who are on the FI network, my dog is number 10 in there. And then I can compare him to like all the employees at FI, for example, is number
That's
11.
awesome.
So it's a competitive group. It's a competitive group. And then we have a whole like community feature that we've been really developing over the past few years as well, where you can see all like post picture, post videos of your dog, and have people interact with these videos and really engage on the platform and comment. And so that's a pretty cool aspect of the experience that we've been developing as well, where we see people just engaging with the app in a pure social way to share things about their dogs and their life with their dogs. That we didn't see in the past because it was purely utilitarian. So now we really have a interesting community of engaged customers who share their life with their dog on the FI app more than on the other social network, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing use case because people are passionate about their pets, especially dogs. And yeah, they want to share what their dog is up to. And I love the gamification, the leaderboard aspect. Like when I'm on the Peloton, I'm all about the leaderboard, trying to trying to excel. And then the sleep tracking, I didn't know that I did that as well. And it reminds me of Whoop, right? Like it's
Yeah.
tracking the health of your dog.
Yeah, absolutely. So sleep tracking is really interesting, especially for your dog, because dog sleeps in different phases, right? So like there is a daytime sleep that we're tracking. There is also nighttime sleep. And then I don't know if you see on the top here, we track what's called interruption. So we'll see if your dog during the night woke up and for how long he woke up. And that's really important because there are a bunch of pathologies that leads to your dog starting to like wake up at night and go drink more often, for example. And so we're now building models to try to extract these insights and warn the dog owner, hey, we've noticed this pattern change in your dog's behavior, and you should probably go check with your vet, you know?
And that's what I picked up on. I'm like, okay, this is now becoming like a health detection device that's being proactive. Like when, Whoop during the pandemic, it was publishing reports that, a golfer, was tracking their metrics and realized they had COVID, ahead of testing. So that was like a use case that was helped, Whoop become what it is today. So is
Yep.
the health piece like a big part of your strategy, like moving forward?
Yeah, I think we landed the location piece pretty nicely at this point, and it's like I mean, it's definitely best in class, safety device for preventing your dog from escaping and from providing you with a peace of mind that if he escapes, you can recover him easily. Um, and so we're definitely developing the health aspect much more aggressively now. And I think another aspect of that is the emergence of really kind of order of magnitude evolution of machine learning over the past few years, right? We collect terabytes of data about these dogs in the field. And so we start to train pretty complex model, which are soon going to be able to run at the edge, like directly on the device and detect specific behaviors and conditions for which we can then aggregate that information at the fleet level. And, you were talking about detecting COVID emergence. It would be pretty easy for us to start detecting emergence of like allergies in dogs population over, the time of the year, right? And so if your dog start itching more than usual tomorrow, I can tell you either he's got a very specific issue, or I can tell you, hey, it's part of a larger trend we're seeing amongst dog in your area that maps to allergies emerging.
Wow. I mean, yeah. So, like you said, you've nailed the location piece, but now the health piece. So how are consumers finding your product? Like, from where you were 5 years ago to now, like, what's your strategy been as far as scaling and growing?
Yeah, honestly, it's very difficult. The number one thing I think that is a challenge is that we're effectively creating a product category. Nobody gets a dog, wakes up the next morning, and then goes online and say, "Okay, I'm gonna go buy a smart dog collar for my dog." Right? 99% of the dog owners out there do not know that smart collars are just a category of products. So our job becomes, okay, how do we get in front of them in any way, shape, or form? Right? Like it's about finding new ideas and constantly kind of finding new ways to get in front of dog owners. And we do that through 100 of different ways and channels, and we try to be creative with everything we're doing. I mean, when you build a business like this, pretty fast you realize you exhaust the typical like I'm gonna buy ads on Facebook kind of thing, right? Like it only goes up to a certain level, and after that you need to start being creative, work with rescues, work with other partners in the field. Uh, be on the radar of dog owners when they're looking for something else that has nothing to do with your product. Partnerships, like things like that. Recently we did a huge partnership with Strava, super super successful, because we realized a lot of people who have dogs are athletes and they love to run with their dogs, and so now you can integrate your Strava app with your Fi app, and anytime you go on a run with your dog, the data from the collar is posting in your Strava feed, right? And then other people see that and say, wait, what is this? This is counting the activity for my dog. Like I want this. I'm a runner with my dog, right? So like you try to find partnerships like this that make sense so that you can build on top of it, right? And just get in front of the customer. But it's not an easy ordeal. It really takes for you to try to do something like that to realize how hard it is for a brand to really break the noise level and be on the radar of the average consumer out there. Like it's a very, very noisy world out there.
Well, one of the things that one might say, well, why don't you just bring this to retail? Like, wouldn't that be like your silver bullet for mass adoption? Which that was something that you pursued, but didn't necessarily yield the results you were hoping for.
Yeah. We saw the same thing. We thought let's go to retail. um, and so yeah, we partner with a big chain in the pet space, and we're in something like 150, 200 stores, and it just didn't move sales at all. Way less than we were able to do on our own or online. And I think the reason for that is because the way consumers leverage retail today is very much functional, right? They go to retail for things that they know they want to buy. Retail has become much less of a discovery environment for consumers. So if you're selling shampoo or sunscreen, absolutely go to retail. This is 100% what's going to take your business from 1x to 10x. But if you're creating a new product category and you need to get in front of a customer and educate them about the thing that your product actually does, retail is not where you're going to get discovery. you know um, it doesn't mean it's not going to come back in the longer run for us. Like I think once we have an established brand, and the question becomes for our customers, hey, where can I get my color in the easiest way and most convenient way for me? Retail might be the answer to that, right? It's faster, it's more convenient, you're going there anyway for the food, for the supplements, something else. But when it comes to actually sell one new emerging product in a landscape, I don't think retail is a very good discovery channel.
So what's the latest with the business? Like, number of employees, like number of callers that are out there, like whatever metrics
Yeah.
you can share.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the business is doing great. We've sailed through COVID in a pretty nice way. Um, my team has done an amazing job, really. I think we're profitable. We're in the double digit millions dollar revenue. We have 100 employees. We have hundreds of thousands of callers in the field sold, and we're eyeing that 1 million mark. So like we're just excited about the business. We're definitely still in hyper growth. Last year, I think we grew something like 45% top line. Um, so it's not bad. Like we're getting there. And it's really about us to continue being creative. And every time you go to the next level, you're like, oh my God, I need to double that number again. Like it's definitely easier to go from 1 to 5 million than to go from 75 to 150. And um, but it's about remaining creative and trying new things and continuing to invest in different ways to get in front of the customer and polishing your service as well, right? Like that's where you realize that at a certain size, our main channel for growth is still referral from our existing customers, right? Word of mouth is like more than 35% of our sales today. And so you got to delight your customers. You got to make sure you treat them correctly. You got to make sure you continue innovating and bring them more value into their product so that they continue being engaged with their color. Like we always think, dogs on average will live 10 years plus. We hope they continue to live more. And that's part of our job to make sure that they stay safe and in good health. But we want to be for these 10 years on the dog, right? And we're 5 years into the business and we're seeing people with like 4 or 5 years of the color on their dog, and it's motivating. We can see that they're continuing to use the color and that they see value into having this being part of the core ecosystem of products for their dogs.
Now, what have you learned over the past 5 years as it relates to the business model? Like, hey, this is going to be a subscription business, or hey, initially we charge for the hardware, or like what evolved to like what's it look like now?
Yeah, I think one of the things we really learned, and we knew that kind of from the beginning, we knew that the only way this business work is if there is some kind of membership or subscription associated to it, right? Like we were not in the business of selling a flat collar with no service associated to it. So we started like this, and then progressively, it became even more and more clear that we wanted to establish a long-term relationship with the customer, right? And so we actually bundled the cost of the hardware into the software, into the membership. And so now we're selling a membership for $19 a month. That just includes everything. You get the collar for free, you put it on your dog, and then you get ongoing services, updates, upgrades, all of that. And so that's really like in the spirit of what we're trying to create with our customers. Like, hey, we want to be your health and peace of mind partner for your dog. So pay us $20 a month and we'll give you the best technology you can think of 24/7 for your dog.
And it's evolved a lot in terms of the like the collar itself. It's more fashionable.
Yeah, absolutely. We have like hundreds of different models now with different patterns, colors, materials. Some people want the rubber one, some people want the nylon, the leather, some people want it customized. We have a whole third-party network of makers who are really incredible, who are just making custom accessories for the five color, and it's super exciting to see them continue to put amazing things out there now. And we support them. We advertise for them on the website, and we encourage our customers to upgrade from more basic color to like a more customized one because we want them to be fully satisfied with what their dog is wearing.
I hope you are enjoying this interview. Just a brief word from our sponsor. As a longtime champion in the local startup ecosystem, Silicon Valley Bank supports innovative companies with the solutions and financing they need through every stage of growth. With more than 1,500 bankers and relationship advisors and 42 billion in loans through Q2 2024, SVB delivers the right people, service, and resources to support your entire financial journey. Learn more at svb.com. So you've talked about kind of the scale of the business of existing members. Like how much have you thought about, it's easier to keep a customer and expand a customer than it is to acquire a new one most of the time. So what about multiple product categories? Is that something that you're exploring or thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. There is, well, first this year we started launching, we launched a line of supplements. That was the first kind of like product categories that we thought made a lot of sense because it's really aligned with our mission, right? Our mission is to keep your dog in the best possible health of their life. And we have all of that data about your dog, and we can aggregate that data and tell you, hey, your dog is really excited at night versus, compared to other dogs. So maybe like there is CBD supplement or something like that that we can customize for them, right? And we can also say, hey, your dog is extremely active. So there's all these like muscle supplements and joint supplements that are available that we can put together for you. And the thing with dogs, especially, that their diet is very monolithic, right? Like if you think about human diet, we tend to change every day, right? You don't eat the same thing every day, and so you actually get a pretty good coverage of what you need on a daily basis because you vary your food that much. When it comes to dog, most dogs eat the same thing. So if there is one gap into that diet, you actually have like the opportunity for a massive gap into their daily supplementation. So we try to we really convinced that supplementation is very powerful for dogs and that it will really expand their life. So we decided to launch this line of supplements. We're opening it to everyone literally as we speak. We released it to a subset of our customers for the first few months, and now we're scaling to everyone, and we're also shipping new different SKUs by the end of the year. So we'll have a whole collection of supplements that we can offer our customers and that integrates with the collar and that you can just add to your membership. So you don't have to purchase this as like a separate product. You can if you want, but you can just increase your level of membership with us, and we'll just, in addition to the collar service, we'll just ship you supplements every X weeks.
Well, the other thing that I noticed as it relates to your business is, as you scale and grow, you need to bring in new leadership. So
Mhm.
I noticed there was some significant hires of late to add to that team. So what has that process been like, continuing to scale and then thinking about, okay, we're at this stage of the business. Now we need leadership that has experience doing X to Y versus when we were A to B.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like well, to be fair, we kept most of our leadership from the early days. So it's been pretty amazing, but it's part of your job as you grow that company to be able to identify, hey, like this leader was amazing for that period of the business and we need something different now. And and it's completely fine. And luckily, because the business has been doing well and because we're building an exciting product and technology, we're able to have access to incredible leaders out there who are excited to take leadership positions with us. So yeah, recently we hired a bunch of really amazing leaders. Like Brian Berinan is now our chief creative officer. He was like super early at Peloton. He literally built the whole brand design organization there, and he's now leading all of our brand creative and design team. And like it's fantastic because you bring these people in and you always see how much you think you have like an organization that's working well, and then you bring these people and then they just elevate entirely that piece of the organization. You're like, oh my god, we're operating at like, I thought we were a 7, we were a 4. And now we're a 7. um and no, that's amazing. Like continuing to have access to great leaders like this. Daryl Stone joined us to lead product from the Citizen app. We hired people really left and right who were like super talented. And so it's super exciting to see that as you evolve the business, you actually can bring on more talent that is like super high caliber and helps you take it to the next level.
What about another phase of your business or a phase of your company, I should say, like building out your board of directors? You've had a couple new appointments there of, the former Whoop CFO, the former Etsy CEO. So these are super highly qualified people to help hopefully grow Fi to that next level. So what were you thinking about as board seats? There's only so many for most companies. So you need to really think deeply about it. So how did you go about that selection process?
Yeah, same thing. I think, initially when you start the company, like the board is kind of like you and your investors, right? And we're very lucky. I think we have incredible investors, very supportive, and high quality, bring the right type of contribution to the board, right? So like the dynamic on the board was always very positive and collaborative. And so the conversation where there over time, I think becomes like, okay, how can we superpower that board a little bit? How can we find new skill set that we don't have around the table uh, that help us take the company to the next level, right? And then you kind of like you cross that with your network and the opportunity of the people that you meet, and I think then you try to materialize that. I think it's very tempting to add to the board people who like kind of feel good or look good based on pedigree, um, but that are like kind of a mismatch to what you're trying to do, and like actually don't really have a lot to bring to the table. So like if you want to add people to the board, you're gonna have a ton of people interested, right? Like you have people who specialize in being on boards, right? Uh, and I think at least in our case, I really made sure to keep the bar really, really high and to make sure that when we're adding people around the table, it wasn't just for show and tell, but like just for um, the actual expertise it would bring to the business. So if you take Trisha, for example, Trisha is amazing. She was, I do believe she was the original CFO at Whoop. And she was there in a period where they really experienced tremendous growth. And, as I think Whoop is probably gearing up for IPO in the next few years. Like she has really been instrumental in the ramp of that business. And if you look at the similarities between their business and our business and what we're trying to create, I mean, it's undeniable that having her on the table is fantastic. And if you add that the passion for the product, actually, I get incredibly lucky. Trisha reached out to me on LinkedIn and she was like, "Hey, I got two of your colors for my dogs. I really love the product. I was just wondering if you would consider adding someone to your board." And I'm like, "Hell yeah, you're amazing, of course." Um, and she has been instrumental already helping us, think and strategize for the business forward. And Chad was kind of the same thing. Chad was like the ex CTO and then CEO of Etsy. He was literally CEO of Etsy 2 years pre-IPO and all the way through the IPO for a few years. I mean, talk about someone around the table that I can look up to and respect when it comes to like thinking about growing the business and taking it to the next phase. It's never the same thing than sitting in the chair, and Chad has been there. So, and there's not that many successful consumer scaled IPO business out of New York. So when the opportunity emerged for Chad, absolutely, I took it.
So what advice would you have for founders on making that selection? Like it's almost like an interview, but it's obviously a different relationship for a board seat than it is making an executive hire.
Yeah, I think it's all about like setting expectation, being objective about the business, right? Like I think the first step is probably stepping back and asking yourself, okay, what are we really good at, and what are the parts where I wish I had a magic wand and a superpower in that space, right? And when you identify that, then you can start going after people who clearly have done amazing in that space, right? I think that's number one, and then number two is like chemistry and like making sure that you actually can see yourself working with a person closely and that you set expectations properly in terms of time management for them. What does that mean for them to be on the board? Do you just expect them to be there during the board meeting? Do you expect them to work with your team? Do you expect them to prepare the board meeting with you or have an input pre-board meeting? All of that, I think you need to align on the dynamics and make sure that everybody is in the same kind of mindset.
Now, what about fundraising? So when we initially chatted, you had raised your A round.
Mhm.
So what's the fundraising process been like through each step from seed to Series A to Series B that, like because you're dealing with a consumer product, there's hardware, there's software, it's a subscription model. What has that process been like, kind of fast forward since we last chatted?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us it was a little bit special because we have hardware to develop, right? So we had to literally raise money with a board that was doing some stuff but like no real product to commercialize yet, right? So when we talked, we had raised our seed round from Lerer Hippeau Ventures, and I think that was 2.5 million, and that was probably 2018 or something like that. And then 2019 we raised our Series A from RE Ventures. Stuart Hellman invested 7 million. That was a bit different. This time we had the product in a box and we're like, hey, we have one of those. It works. You can put it on your dog. we would like money to be able to manufacture it and commercialize it, right? And so we did that. So that was like about $10 million to actually launch a business and start running it, which is interesting because on one side, if you compare that to software business, there is no reason why you need $10 million to start a software business. But if you compare that to other hardware business, they usually raise like $100 million pre anything. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, it's very weird. So I'm really convinced you can start a hardware-based startup um, with like 10, $15 million. Like you don't need 100 million. It's crazy. And so that's what we did. And then after that, I would say we did a pretty good job after over the first year and a half. So we launched, if I remember well, mid 2019, and we closed our Series B end of 2020. So it was 18 months about. And so we reclosed it, I think, in January of 2021. And that was $30 million from Chuck Murphy at Longview. It was great. It just like kind of like followed us for a year, touch base every few months, track the progress of the business, what we were working on, and how we're scaling the business. And I think I appreciated the execution. So we preempted our next round and we were able to raise that money. And then after that, the whole COVID cycle happened, and then the crash after that. So we had to switch into, okay, we need to get profitable. But honestly, we were already kind of managing the business that way. Like we were never one of these business where like, oh, we're just gonna like run after the next funding round and try to raise that crazy valuation. Like we're always like, hey, we're gonna take that money, we're gonna achieve that milestone, and then our next milestone after proving out the model was clearly becoming profitable. And so that's what we did, and it kind of like fit with the market. The market now is looking for business that are profitable. So yeah, we're in pretty good shape. But now we don't really have any reason to raise more money anymore. So we'll see. Maybe we'll be opportunistic about it in the long run. The market is not completely back to like investing aggressively in consumer businesses, but like we're trying to focus on, hey, like we have a lot of things to do that do not require money, and that's not the key to the next stage of the business. So like we focus on our milestone and we have enough money for that, so we're good to go.
Now, one of the things that I hear from other entrepreneurs is, the expectations for the next round are becoming a little bit challenging. So if you were to raise like a Series C, like what do you think those metric expectations would be for a business like yours?
Yeah, I think that's really tough because what really happened is that the public market crumbled, right? Like so multiples on the public market crumbles. When you have early stage investors, they can mark up their investment based on your Series B or your Series C or something like that. But if someone today invests like 100, $200 million in Series C or D, they expect to make their markup at your IPO, right? Or like when you go public and they're able to liquidate. So um, the reality is that with public multiple collapsing, you basically all of that pressure on valuation kind of like trickle down to the private market, at least the growth stage, right? And so, yeah, you would have to have very high expectations in terms of, like if you want to raise at $1 billion valuation on the private market, you better show them you can be a $10 billion company on the public market. And today you have massive businesses who don't come on that valuation on the public market. So it's a difficult equation again. So I think but the important thing is like, why do you need that $1 billion valuation, and why do you need that money on the private market, right? Like, why would I need $200 million today at a $1 billion valuation? Let's say, like, what do I do with that? I have enough money. We are profitable. We're a growing business. Like, I feel like this is when you get the big money in the bank account and you start doing stupid things with it. Like it's very easy to spend $100 million, and I think it's much more healthy to have 20 in the bank, and like you're still able to do whatever you want. You know what I mean? There is no project that require more than 20 in the bank. So I think it just drives focus, and it's not a bad thing.
Well, and to build it the way you've built it methodically and not overcapitalizing the business and chasing valuations for valuation's sake, because the founders that were able to raise that capital when times were frothy are obviously like experiencing some really challenging parameters of what they can do.
Yeah, and I think, listen, like it's easy to sit back and say, hey, like founders shouldn't do this or investors shouldn't do that, right? But like the reality that we get also lucky is that because of the technical complexity of what we've built, that kind of operated as a moat for competition. So we didn't compete with other players out there who were raising hundreds of millions of dollars. Because when you do that, then capital becomes a differentiator, and you might have an issue if you're not raising a lot of money, right? We were not in that situation. It was really for us to protect. So I think we get lucky that we didn't have, you know, backward pressure on having to raise this kind of like big money to compete with other companies.
Okay, so I keep referring, but it's been 5 years since we chatted. So looking back, what are the biggest lessons learned over, those 5 years of things that you
Oh my
can
God. I don't know. I should write a book or something. I mean, it's every day you learn new things, right? Biggest lessons. It's very hard to zero down to one thing. I think if anything, at the end, it's all about the people. Like it's kind of a given, and you think you know it at the beginning, but then you really realize it in the long run, right? Because um, the people is what drive the quality of the execution, the quality of the thinking, the quality of the conversations, the strategy, whether you wake up in the morning and are excited to go to work or if it's a drag, like it's really everything about the people. And I would say like by extension, it's it's then everything is about the culture, right? Because if you mess up the culture, you attract the wrong people. So I don't know, maybe Peter Thiel was right telling Brian Chesky, don't fuck up the culture. That's pretty much the only thing you got to do, you know? It's really that. Like, I think if you set up the right culture, then you attract the right people, and then that drive the results. And then the results continue fueling into bringing the same kind of people. And, as you scale, now we're 100 employees, you gotta, you gotta keep that bar super high, not feel, um, like you got to maintain your team in shape. You got to make sure people have a path to evolve and continue shaping their skills and developing and being challenged, because even the best people you hire at point A, if you want them to stay and evolve with the company for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you got to continue putting new challenges in front of them and stretch their skill set and have them learn new things, um, in the same way, you need to like recognize when people don't work out anymore, and like have that conversation with them. It's not the easiest one to have, but like you got to do that, because if you don't, like your organization you'll create attrition. Um, you'll create this weight that accumulates progressively, and that is just like, hey, we're not the best team we should be anymore. And so I think one of my exec had this realization about his team a few years ago, and he was like, hey, I thought we were um, kind of a family, and like now I realize that we are a competitive sport team. Like we're an NBA team. Like you got to get off the bench, you got to show every day on the court that you're the best at your job, and if you're not, it's okay, we'll move on. But like, and we'll do it with tact and with respect. But I think thinking about your organization like an athletic team is what you got to do to continue being performant for years, because it's a like five, like, I think people expect this to be a 4 or 5 years kind of deal, and you quickly realize that it's going to be more 5, 10 years kind of deal. I was talking about that with one of our execs this past week, and we're like, yeah, this feels like we're doing all the right things. It still feels like it's going to take 10, and it's totally fine. It's like if you actually go back to the real stories behind the founders and successful companies, you realize that the timeline is actually much longer than what ends up in the newspaper when they IPO. Like um, everything that's public usually feels like a 3 to 5 years quick shot kind of thing, and then you quickly realize that when you dig into the real story, well, that started 5 years before, you know, and so you need people who can evolve in the long run. And like if you want to keep a super high performing organization for 10 years, you got to get comfortable with the fact that people are going to leave, people are going to come, and you need to get comfortable with that process and managing it properly.
That's so true. It's a journey. It's not a sprint, and the media does like to portray that it was an overnight success story and rocket ship growth. Yet, no, no. I mean, it might happen on a once in a million times, but it's a lot, especially building a category. Are you finding more like there more competition in the space since you've helped create this category?
No, I think it's been a steady pace. I mean, honestly, I kind of would like a little bit more competition because when you create a category, it's directly tied to the marketing dollar you deploy in the space, right? Like you try to get in front of the customer, right? And so us being the only one to deploy marketing dollar in that space has been kind of like a drag to actually get in front of customers. Like if you talk to, 100 dog owners today, like 80 of them have never even heard of the smart color, you know? So to that extent, competition would be a blessing a little bit for us. Um, but no, we had there are some. I think every other year there is a new company who tries to start what we've done. But like I think we've built so much expertise in what we have developed at the product level so far that it becomes really really hard to come and compete with us in the market. And I think the second thing is like the next level of innovation we're developing now is really based on machine learning and AI, right? And to develop that, you need the 5 years of data that we have. And so we're really building like a data layer moat there that's pretty impressive. Because today, as of today, still today, we detect your dog escaping your backyard based on the information we're getting from the sensors, right? Like we're saying, hey, the sensor says your dog is here. And even though we have some complex algorithms that say, well, the dog was laying down and then he's running and then he's going in that direction, we can be complex. It's still an algorithm, right? Like tomorrow, it's pretty clear that we'll have models that just ingest the next piece of information that the sensor are reporting about the dog, whether it's location, orientation, movement, speed, or anything like that. And based on model trained on terabytes of data and millions of situations with dog, we'll say, your dog has like a 78% chance of being escaping right now. And that you can only create if you have the terabytes of data we have about dogs in the field. So I think we're in a situation where we're definitely going to make it more and more difficult to create a competitor to what we've built. Yeah. I'm fine
Well,
with that too.
Jonathan, well, yeah, absolutely. Like you've got the product, you've got the IP, you've got the customers. So more entrants, I can see your point of just, hopefully fueling more awareness that this is a category that exists. And when they do their comparison and analysis, that they obviously choose your product. Well, Jonathan, thanks so much for bringing us up to speed on what's going on at Fi. Because, like I said, this was the first time I've done a conversation like this, and I was like, "Wow, like this is something I need to do more often because we're able to go deeper into a business versus, traditionally I do a lot about the person's background story. So it was fun just to kind of get into the weeds. So thanks for sharing all the details.
Thank you for having me again, and I'm looking forward to the next one.